So we need to talk about the successor of this camera, the brand new RED KOMODO-X, and whether or not it makes sense to think about upgrading from an original RED Komodo to the new RED KOMODO-X, specifically when we look at filming underwater. Let's do this. Hey there underwater filmmakers, what's going on? It's great to see you back here on the channel for today's video, which is gonna be all about the new RED KOMODO-X camera that has been announced just a few weeks ago. Now, if you followed this channel for a while, you know that I've been using the RED Komodo for probably about the past year. It's been my main camera on pretty much all of the projects that I've worked on. I've taken it all around the world and I filmed in a variety of different environments and scenarios with this camera, so I got a fairly good idea on what this camera can do underwater and how it can be used best, but also where the limitations are when it comes to using this camera in combination with the gates, underwater housing to film underwater. Now let me be straight and honest with you, this camera has really been an absolute pleasure to work with in the past year that I've been using this camera. It has become my absolute favorite piece of underwater imagery gear, and I literally don't go anywhere without having this camera in my baggage. There's some really distinct reasons why I like this camera so much, and I'll talk about them in a minute, but there's also a couple of things that I don't really like about using this camera underwater, which I'll also gonna be cover a little later in this video, and we'll look at whether or not the newly announced RED KOMODO-X might help and be useful in compensating for those flaws that the RED Komodo has, in my opinion, when we use it to film underwater. So if we look at the things that I really liked about this camera, I definitely need to mention first and foremost the red raw 16-bit image that comes out of this camera, like on all RED cameras. It is an absolute amazing image, and it's the best image that I've ever worked with on any camera, whether that's underwater or on land. You can manipulate this image to a degree and an extent that I have never seen before. And even if you have an image that you captured with less than ideal settings, which can happen underwater for a variety of different reasons. Let's say you're prepared to take a certain shot and then something unexpected happens underwater while you're down there and you have to react quickly, and the only thing that you can really do is, press that shutter button, the record button, and start recording, but you've got the complete wrong settings on your camera. On most other cameras, there's not really much that you can do because you've burned that image onto your card, and you can manipulate that in post-production obviously, but only to a certain degree. And with the 16-bit red raw codec that you're using here, you can do pretty much everything with that footage, and you can save footage that seems to be pretty much unsavable. You can make that look decent and make it usable in normal projects. Maybe it's not going to be in a Hollywood movie, but if you just want to have a B-roll sequence and you want to use that shot that you've captured but we're using less than ideal settings, most likely you will be able to manipulate that shot in a way so that you can still make it work inside your project. And that's something huge in my opinion. So that's one of the most important things and benefits of using the RED Komodo as I've been using it in the past year. Another thing that definitely needs to go on here is the compactness of the camera system. I mean, let's be honest, it's not a small system. I agree on that, but for what you're getting with this system, it is actually fairly compact, and it's a system, and that's most important, that can be quite easily transported from here, Zurich, to any place in the world. I can take it on an airplane. I don't really have to get like a lot of excess luggage allowance to take it with me. It works quite easily, and that's a big thing for me because I don't really like traveling with, you know, like 100 kilos of weight when I'm traveling with airplanes in particular. So having a compact and small system helps a lot there by keeping that the load that you're taking with you, keeping that as small as possible and keeping you as agile as possible as well. So that's another big benefit there. The versatility of this camera is also quite impressive. You can use it to capture some really nice wide angle shots, obviously depending on the lens that you're using there. But with the gates housing and their optics, you can pretty much use any lens that you want on this camera. So you can capture anything from wide angle reef scenes or large animal interactions, all the way to stunning super close macro shots with very, very shallow depth of field. So you're very, very versatile with that camera, which has helped me in certain projects in the past quite a bit. I also want to mention the brand name, and even though some people think that this is not really true, but I can confirm that using a RED camera or being able to supply a RED camera to film underwater is definitely gonna bring up the possibility for certain jobs that otherwise would not happen. In my case, specifically the job that I did last year for Red Bull here in Switzerland, it only happened because I was able to supply a RED Komodo for the underwater part, and that's what really sold them my gig, so I was able to work for them with the RED Komodo. So whether you like it or not, the brand name does really make a difference when we look at what kind of jobs you might be getting in the future, what kind of jobs you're looking at if you're going into that field. And lastly, I also want to mention the power supply of this camera. With most underwater camera systems, you're quite happy to get about an hour's worth of battery life. So it lasts you for about a dive, and then you'll have to change batteries in between dives. With this one here, and this is not solely thanks to the RED camera, to the RED Komodo, but also to the system that Gates has created as an underwater housing around the RED Komodo. They have come up with a way so they can have a power supply of about 120 to 130 minutes, which is roughly 2 hours, which means that if I'm out on a boat for 2 dives, I don't need to touch the system in between the 2 dives. I can just leave everything as it is, as long as I don't want to change lenses. I'll leave everything as it is. Everything is nice and safe on the boat. Even if I'm out on a small boat where it's wet, I don't really have the space to, open it all up in a safe environment and change batteries and stuff. I don't need to worry about that. I've got 2 hours easily of power supply, and I can easily go through 2 dives, and I don't have to worry about, turning the camera on and off constantly to save some battery power that way and not risking having to open the camera up on a rocking wet boat. So that's definitely something that I've really liked working with this camera. So before we get into the things that I don't like about working with the RED Komodo underwater, let's take a quick break and thank our video sponsor for today's video. The good people at Divefork, they have created something quite incredible that has proven to be very, very beneficial to a lot of you guys out there trying to capture their underwater adventures in the best and easiest way possible. Divefork is the first company that has created a underwater smartphone housing with a true touchscreen display or touchscreen capability. Now this is the main part of their product line, the Divefork C-Touch 4 Max underwater smartphone housing. As I said, this housing makes you capable of using the full capability of your smartphone's touchscreen, making you capable of using any apps that you want while being underwater. Obviously, You cannot use your phone to call someone or to send messages while being underwater yet, but you can use all other apps underwater and use them in whichever way you want. This means that you're not stuck to a specific third-party app when it comes to using your camera for taking photos and videos underwater, but you can use any app really. You can use the native app of your phone or any other third-party app that you want that gives you special functions that you want to use on your camera that you love using on land. Now you can use them underwater as well. But Divefork doesn't only have the C-Touch 4 Max underwater smartphone housing, they have created a whole ecosystem around that smartphone underwater housing where you can get trays that will help you get more stable footage using your phone underwater. They also have their own line of underwater video lights which will help you just get nicer colors and better exposure on your shots. Also, you can get wide angle and macro lenses that will help you to create and capture a larger variety of different shots underwater. So in short, Divefork has you covered no matter whether you're a seasoned professional and you just want to use your smartphone to capture some social media content that you can use on your social media channels, or you want to use your smartphone as your main camera and capture your amazing underwater adventures that way. Please use the link in the video description below to check out the full range of products that Divefork has on offer. Using the link below, you will get a 6% discount on any purchase that you make through the Divefork web shop. Thank you so much Divefork for sponsoring this video, for creating such amazing products, and of course also for offering that special discount to my viewership. So let's have a look now at the few things that I don't like about working with RED Komodo underwater. And there's really only two things that I haven't liked in the past year that I've worked with this camera. One of them is the missing IBIS, the missing in-body image stabilization. I think it would be nice to have such a tool or such a feature in that camera, in the RED Komodo. And I know that RED just doesn't do that in their cameras, and if you use that camera on land, it's not a problem because you just put it on a gimbal and problem solved, right? Underwater, that's a little different. What you can do is use stabilized lenses, and that helps quite a bit, but still it would be nice to have that added stability of having an in-body stabilization system built into the camera somehow, so you're not purely relying on the stabilization of the lens and the warp stabilizer that you can add onto the image in post-production. The second part that I haven't really liked too much is the limitation on frame rates. Now with the RED Komodo, the original RED Komodo, you can film up to 40 frames a second in 6K and up to 60 frames a second in 4K. And then you can go to 120 frames per second in 2K. But like with every RED camera, the more you reduce the resolution, the more you reduce the resolution, the more the sensor is gonna crop in and your field of view is gonna get narrower. And this might be a problem specifically if you're filming some wide angle reef scenes or you wanna capture some big animal action shots where you need to be, or you wanna be as close as possible to that animal. So this is actually where the RED Komodo-X and their new features come into play, because the RED Komodo-X, in addition to having some other improvements like improved audio capability, like better connectivity, like improved live streaming capabilities, power supply options, and so on, it actually has quite a big improvement on frame rates. It doubles those frame rates. So now with the RED Komodo-X, you will be able to film in 80 frames per second in 6K, and with 120 frames per second in 4K, and then it goes up to 240 I think in 2K, but that's not really relevant. It's the 6K and the 4K that I'm really interested in, and these two will increase the frame rates quite dramatically. That alone I think makes it makes it worthwhile for me personally to think about upgrading to the RED Komodo-X. Just having those extra frame rate options is an absolute great thing. And I'm not saying that I would be using them on every single shoot and every single time I use the camera, but just knowing you have those frame rate options, that you can fall back to them and you can use them and you can still get your 6K or your 4K image out of the camera with these higher frame rates, that's something really, really cool. And even though the camera will cost around 10 grand, I think it is, for me, worth that upgrade. But this comes with a condition. The condition being that I can use the same housing, the deep Komodo housing that I've been using for the original RED Komodo for the past year, that I can use that as well with the RED Komodo-X. And the RED Komodo-X, when we look at the dimensions, is not so different to the original RED Komodo. The only difference is that it's slightly longer because it's got a different battery system. It's not working with normal batteries, but it's working with V-mount batteries. And therefore the whole mounting system and the connections at the back are slightly different, and the whole camera is slightly longer than the original RED Komodo. Now Gates, the manufacturer of the deep Komodo housing that I've been using for the past 12 months, they have actually announced that they're working on a conversion tool or conversion kit that will make this housing capable of accepting the RED Komodo-X without having to upgrade to a full new housing. If that happens, and ideally if they come up with a system where they can send out the tools or the conversion kit and I can convert this housing here in my studio by myself without having to send in the whole underwater housing to make them make the conversion, then I think it is a really, really high possibility that I will be actually updating and upgrading from the original RED Komodo to the new RED Komodo-X. If that doesn't happen, and it would mean that I would have to get a complete new underwater housing for the RED Komodo-X, then I don't really see this happening, because then I think the money that I'd have to invest in getting everything from scratch new again is just not really going to be worth the extra frame rates and the other few bits and pieces that the RED Komodo-X has been improved in comparison to the original RED Komodo. Right now we don't really know much about that conversion kit other than Gates having started to work on it, but they don't have any details yet. It's still gonna take a few, probably weeks or maybe even months before they will come up with a solution. But rest assured that as soon as that's the case, I will let you guys know here on the channel, and we'll see where this journey is taking me from there, and whether or not I might be starting to capture my personal underwater adventures very soon with the new RED Komodo-X. I would really like that. So what about you? Have you looked into the new RED Komodo-X? And if so, what are your thoughts about that new camera? Is it worth the upgrade from the original RED Komodo? Let me know down in the comment section below. I'd really like to engage in a conversation with you about that topic. If you have any other questions regarding the RED Komodo or the RED Komodo-X, also please leave your comment down in the comment section below, and I'll be happy to get back to you as quickly as I can. Thank you so much guys for watching and for your time. I hope this video was useful to you and I was able to give you some insights into my thoughts and how I think about whether or not I would be or should be upgrading to that new camera. If you enjoyed today's video, please do hit that like button and consider subscribing to the channel so you're not missing out on any future content that will be uploaded here every Tuesday and Thursday. Thanks again for your time. Now have a great week. Keep capturing all your awesome underwater adventures, and I will see you next Tuesday. Take care, guys.